Welcome everyone. Match played second tiebreak game one between Harikrishna and Marthnze. Look at this starting. Okay, Harikrishna play with the white pieces. E4, then same opening C5. Now here no goes for long castle from Harikrishna. He plays the queen E2. I think opponent plays also bishop E7 and then goes for short castle. Yes, he does. He plays bishop on e7. Then Hari Krishna goes for e5. Now here, opponent and do not take because black bishop is a very strong diagonal fight. Yes, he does. He take with the pawn. Also, Krishna take with the queen. Now he goes for a short castle. What to do here? Athens. Think Fide World Cup 2015. He exchanged the queen. He offered the exchange my queen. Now here, what to do? Patali Harikrishna. Also attack on b2 pawn with the queen. Yes, he exchanged the queen. Patali Harikrishna exchanged the queen. Opponent take with the rook. Now he plays b3 is or bishop b3. Now what he does? Yes, he plays bishop b3. Patali Harikrishna. Bring the bishop on b3. Yes, opponent tried to avoid the bishop from b3 squares because he entered the rook from b2 files, b files. Oh, Hari Krishna, go with a long castle. Yes, also save this b2 pawn and exchange the bishop trades by Hari Krishna. He take with the bishop and goes for rook c8 or king d7. I think exchange the bishop is a good move and go for a short castle. Yes, he exchanged the bishop into a4 and Hari Krishna take with the knight. Now he can a short castle and rook is connected from b file. Here rook bring b7 and rook b8 and harikrishna plays bishop c3. Now here what to do? Marthin's Anthony's. Oh, Harikrishna bishop plays f4. Okay, what is the last move from the Martins? Yes. Oh, you also bring the rook b7. Now he goes for a short castle, then rook b8. But bishop covered the squares already by Krishna. Also saved this pawn by Martins. And knight jump to d7 and push the pawn. Then goes for a castle and bring the rook on b8. It's an idea from Athens. Krishna attack on c4 pawn because opponent have no idea to stop this pawn. Also attack on bishop Martins. Bishop come to back g3. Also goes bishop e7. e5 is not a good move. Bishop come to back on g3. Don't left this square or this square. Now can he goes d2 not a good move. Bishop g3 is a good move because opponent bring the rook d7 and sacrifice the knight. Now here c3 with a now what is the move from Hari Krishna is the right move. He is searching what to do here. He can't take a sometime. He saves the bishop already saves, but can't exchange with the knight because this square is a black. Okay, dark square is a very weak. If he exchange the bishop, so avoid the exchange and bring the bishop g3. Also, not say bishop here. Same take with the rook c4. Rook into c4 is a good move, and then he can exchange the knight with a bishop rook. Yes, he bring the bishop on d2. He saves the pawn on c4. Why he bishop bring back? Can't understand. Why Krishna played bishop on d2? He come back g3 and this girl is covered. but c file is very weak. If you take a rook with a c4, so that's why the reason harikrishna bishop back to d2. Now he can bring the bishop c3. Yes, the idea is also a knight comes plays on c3 and exchange variation, then goes for bishop c3. Now he again attack on a rook, bishop move to a5. The move is rook to c6 is a move, or rook c8 also another move. Yes, he goes for c6, rook c6. Now here, what to do here? Hari Krishna. This knight is a very bad place on the last file. So he can exchange with the knight. Knight bring the c3, but this square is weak. If you move the knight, then bishop come to c5. Yes, he does. He bring the knight on c3. Now he bishop bring on c5 is a good move, but this pawn is hanging. So now can he exchange the knight? Can he exchange the knight? What to do here, Hari Krishna? He plays knight on c3. Can he? Opponent goes for bishop g5 check. Okay, only two legal moves, Hari Krishna, d1 or b1, king d1 or b1. Cannot move to king b1 because this file is open file. So he goes for d1 or b1. Yes, he goes for b1. Marthnze stack on rook d4. Okay, rook bring on e4. Move to b e4 is a right move. But opponent exchange the knight with the knight, and then opponent goes for a bishop, then can bishop and take with the pawn or take the. This is file is open. Now he can exchange the knight because he advances on a b file. Can he exchange the knight? Yes, he goes for exchange the knight with a bishop because he trade the also bishop. He takes the bishop, he goes for a take with the knight, and Pandale Hare Krishna take with the pawn. His b file is open. That's why I Do not bring on b1. Now he goes for a a1 and rook bring on b1. It's the right move. Now he goes for a yes, he does. Rook bring on b8, then check. Goes for a a1 or c1. A1 is a good move, and then goes for rook b1 because next rook here, rook move to rook c b6. Nothing is attack. He goes for a c1. Now move to rook d2 on b4 because rook can't there move to there. So that's why rook bring on d4 or also within check rook save the check opponent. Yes, and Ali Krishna goes for rook d4 because king move to here or also rook opponent can't move rook c6. Yes. Now Hari Krishna move to h3 h4 pawns. Also rook bring on d8 some space or rook b1 e1. Yes, rook e1 because he goes for c4. Opponent also goes for rook c a6. Can Harikrishna save the pawn with the king b1 or b2? Can he save the pawn? No, he can't save. Oh, Krishna double attack on c4 pawn. Also Marthin save with the rook. Krishna goes for g4. Strikes from here. Move to pawn g4. What to do here? But he can exchange, take the pawn with the rook. Opponent can take with. He stops the pawn within g5. Yes, he goes for king to b2, king b2. Can Pedale Hari Krishna bring the rook e5 and then goes for b5? Yes, he stalls the pawn e5. Pawn score discovered by the pawn f6. Okay, Krishna goes for a3. Also, Krishna goes for a rook d5 and then goes for a rook d5 because this is pawn hanging, so can't take with the pawn. So he goes for a rook as opponent move to rook c6 and bring their a6 and take this pawn. Now Harikrishna is in a trouble. What he does? What is the right move for Harikrishna? Let's see. He can't stop this. He can't save this pawn because rook goes for a6. Okay. Rook comes back on e3. Yes. Opponent goes for a6. Rook a6 is the right move. This pawn is safe, but he takes again rook e4. He can't save the rook because this pawn is hanging by the rook, pinned by the rook because this pawn is pinned by rook. Okay, so he can't take with the pawn. So that's why Hari Krishna don't move the rook. Now here move to rook d5 and goes for rook b5, and then now here bring the rook b4 exchange variation. Now what to do here? Marthin's goes for rook a6. Then he lost this pawn. So that's why. Also Krishna goes for d5, then b5. He bring the rook on c8. Yes, now can do it. Krishna rook d5, then goes for b5. Can he see this move? Can he finds the move? Rook bring the d5, rook on d5. Can he find this? Hari Krishna is in a trouble. Yes, he finds this. Rook bring on d5. Yes, Krishna find the move. Also stop this rook on b5. He moved to a6. He moved to pawn a6 and stop the rook on b5. Also check with the rook. Can he find this? Andre Martins, can he find the move? Can he finds the move? a6 and stop the rook on b5. Let's see. Only 3 minutes both side. No, he can't find. Can he goes b5? Yes, he goes b5. Also, Martin stayed the rook on b6. Rook plays on b6. The idea from the Martins. Can he finds the move? Martins. Rook bring on b6. Also rook bring on c6 and goes for b6 and one rook covered this file, b file. But this pawn is hanging. Also king move here is the right move or Petale Harikrishna move to rook b4 on a double attack on this pawn. Now 2 minutes have a Martins or 3.5 minutes Petale Harikrishna. Only winning. Yes, he goes for rook trade. Rook brings on b6. He exchange with the rook. He can't. He avoid the exchange because he take with the c into b4. Now opponent can't exchange because this pawn is come back on our file, b file. So that's why exchange is the not good idea from Athens. He brings, he moved to rook and king moved to e6. Now he avoid, he knows. Can Petal here Krishna goes for a b7, it's not a good move. Or some move from here h3 and f3 and king move to here d5 and kick this rook because both rook depend this pawn. So that's why I move to rook king e6. This is the idea from Athens. Yes, he rook back to e3 and Martins h5. No, he can't exchange. And Ali Hari Krishna go with the h3 or f3. h3 is the right or wrong? h3 is a right or wrong? f3. Yeah, exchange. No, three pawns is very well placed on in the center. So can't exchange. Can he exchange and bring the rook on h3 and move to h6? Yes, he can. He does. He will bring on h3 and move to h6 and also goes for a rook b7. There rook b7, rook b7. Yes, it's a great idea from Pedale Hari Krishna. He moved forward to pawn h6. Martin first goes for a rook b7 because opponent here. Yes, he goes for a b7, rook b7. Now opponent move to king g4 on Patali Harikrishna goes for rook g3 check, and he can't take the pawn because yes, he goes for a king g4. Now rook is hanging. Patali Harikrishna. Yes, he can check. He doesn't accept a king into h5. That's the idea. Now he take with the rook a7. Rook into a7. Yes, he does. Also take with the h5. This pawn is very well connected passer, but this three pawns is very strong position. Yes, he goes for as a4. This is isolated pawn. It's a passer. Also, Martin goes for a g4 because g4 take with the h into g3 and rook enter in the g1 rank with a check. He goes b2 on d2, but he changed the rook from here. So Hari Krishna immediately moved to king b2 or a3. This is the main move from Hari Krishna because he exchanged the rook. Then he saved this pawn with king. This is the idea from Hari Krishna. He doesn't move king b2 or d2, goes for d2. Goes for a5. Check with the rook or trade the rook here. What to do here? Athens. One pawn up Patali Hari Krishna, but exchange the rook. That's why Martins can't exchange the rook because one pawn up. He goes for exchange variation, goes for rook. Okay. Patali Hari Krishna don't exchange the rook. He avoid the exchange. Now rook take with the rook a4, a5, then entering in a one rank and goes for f1. Okay. Or also rook. Yes, he goes for rook into a4. Now what to do here? Pentali Hari Krishna goes for a a7. Rook is g7 is a good move, but he can't move to g7. He brings on f7. Okay. Why move to rook? Queen e2. This rook goes here. A2. Rook brings on a2. Opponent Martins. Natali Harikrishna goes for rook c7. Yes, he does. He goes for a. He leaves the pawn. Isolated pawn once again. 3 versus 3. But this pawn, 3 pawn is connected. This pawn is lone. He can't king g2 because this pawn is hanging. And yes, he goes for exchange. You can take and I go for a check. Can he does. Yes, he take with the. Yes, take h into g4 is take and opponent take with the rook. Hare Krishna only 15 minutes. Opponent have a 30 second. 50 second only Hare Krishna. Yes. First of all check and then yes. Now this rook is entering here c1. Rook c1. Rook c2 c1. Yes. Check and Hare Krishna in a trouble because rook g1 is a mate. Move to